The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Tony Maloney along with Kip Keefer. This is the Keefer and Kurre Show. You and I were just briefly talking about what we wanted to get into on the show, and
we didn't get very far.
No, and the more stuff I threw out, the more things I thought this would be really good to get into with you. So I've got just a plethora of different ideas I want to get into. We'll talk some NBA. I want to talk about some music, and I want to talk about championships, all three.
All right.
No, but and I want to thank you. That this should speak volumes. I've done a lot of radio, okay? I've been doing radio for 46 years. And I got into it when I was like 12 years old. And I've worked with a lot of people, a lot of great people. I've had some wonderful guest hosts, and I've had some great partners. I've had some not so great. But you were one of the rare guys that I know I can sit down. It's the craziest thing. I can sit down. I could sit down and throw anything at you, and I know that you're going to be able to fill whatever. And you're not full of shit either. That's the crazy thing. Because I mean, there's some guys you can just throw. Let's talk about our favorite fruit today, and it would be a horrible show about an hour long about fruit. But I know that if I threw that out to you, you'd actually make it pretty entertaining and something interesting I think people would want to comment on. And that's what's so cool about doing the show, because sometimes I don't want you to know where I'm going. I used to do it with our morning show with Aldo Greco and Jay Barker all the time. I wouldn't tell them where I was going because I wanted that shock value, and they hated that. They're like, dude, why don't you tell us where you're going? I'm like, I don't want to tell you where I'm going because I want to see your reaction.
Yeah, I mean,
react to it.
Who wants a prepared response? I mean, that's that the spontaneity of a podcast is what makes it a good listen. It's fundamental to me. I don't want to have a rehearsed material. We can go be in a Broadway play if we're going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that's not a bad idea, by the way.
No doubt. That would be good. So this morning I was on Fox 6. You and I, of course, are on ABC 3340 every Saturday morning from 10:30 to 11 o'clock. We're less than 100 days away from college football season. We're going to be buttoned up against that early SEC game of the week. I can't believe we're going to have Georgia and Clemson, that early game. It's going to be fantastic. And so our show, no one turns on college football right when it starts. Everyone watches whatever's on before it. So you're going to be forced to watch us, which is going to be great. And we're looking forward to that. So we got that. But in the meantime, I'm out of Fox 6, and Fox 6 calls me, and whenever they have something come up, it's usually a couple times a week. They call me the expert in whatever that topic is. And so Apple Music came out with their top 100 albums of all time, okay? And they just released their top 10 albums of all time. Now, this was, quote unquote, a 21st century ranking and look at the greatest albums ever made. Okay. I thought it was interesting they say the 21st century, because we've obviously had just a million of these top 100 album things, right? I mean,
sure.
We can go. You and I can sit there and X on Main Street. We can go Who's Next. We can go. We can go on and on, and Thriller. We can go on and on and on. And so, obviously, when you have a top 10 list like this, you don't want to come out with Rumors as the number one album, because everyone's you can put that in there, but you want to do something that gets what? You want the people to talk, right? You want people to go, that's bullshit. That's crazy. Why in the world? So I want to give you their top 10 albums, which was released earlier this morning, and I want you to give me your thoughts.
And it's for this century.
It just said a 21st century ranking.
Okay.
It was well over 200 different music writers from all different genres. There, Niles Rodgers, of course, who's a well-known producer. There were several rock and rollers that were actually part of this list. So I mean, it wasn't like three goofballs in a closet up at Apple Music saying, "Give me your top." This was a pretty comprehensive list. So number 10, Lemonade from Beyonce. Number 9, Nevermind from Nirvana. Number 8, Back to Black from Amy Winehouse. Number 7, Good Kid from Kendrick Lamar. Number 6, Songs in the Key of Life from Stevie Wonder, 1976. And I will tell you why I think that's really important. That's in there. Blonde from Frank Ocean. Purple Rain from number 4 from Prince. Number 3, Abbey Road from the Beatles. Number 2, Thriller. And number 1, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. And I will just, well, no, I want you to go first before I say a word, because I want to get your thoughts on those top 10? Just overall, what you're thinking? Is it crazy? Do you like it? Do you hate it? What do you think?
Well, I'm a little confused.
Yes.
The 21st century, there were a couple that were predated that, so I really don't understand the poll fully. So I guess maybe we should have rehearsed this segment.
Yeah. No. You're right on.
I mean, how does Abbey Road and the Stevie Wonder album make that list?
I don't know, and the only reason I would say that they make that list is because
And Thriller.
you almost have to put them on there, right? And then I'm thinking to myself, if you're going to go back to 1976 and Songs of the Key of Life, which is one of the greatest albums of all time,
incredible,
21 songs, fantastic. Isn't She Lovely? You had it on there. I mean, that was a great album. And they put Abbey Road from 1969, and maybe it was one of those Mount Rushmore things where, listen, if you're going to say the best coach of all time, we just have to start with Nick Saban. Now, who are the three? Maybe it was one of those things. But for the most part, Nevermind from Nirvana, Songs the Key of Life, Purple Rain, Thriller, and The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, those 5 are on at least 6 other lists that I've looked up, including Rolling Stone's top 100 albums of all time. So I'm like, okay, that's got to be pretty. I'm a big Lauryn Hill fan. That was her solo album. It was her only solo album. But obviously it was a land mover. It was a land shaker. And it's a great album. Would I put it in the top 10? Probably not, but I'm just not a huge Lauryn Hill fan. But Rumors, Exiles on Main Street, Pet Sounds. We can go on and on and on and on and on. I just want to get your thoughts on this because you and I are of the same. And I was on Fox 6 this morning and they were asking me the question, okay, well, who are your favorite albums? And of course, my top 10 albums would be I'd throw a James Taylor in there. AC/DC's Back in Black with it. But that's just my personal feeling. Now, if you're asking me to pick 10 albums that I think should be the best albums of all time, I'm going to take Dark Side of the Moon. I'm just going to I'm going to go off the rail a little bit, but I didn't know if well, give me a couple of your albums. Give me 2 albums that you Keefer love as a top 10 album for you. And then give me 2 albums that, regardless of whether you like the music or not, are considered 2 of the best albums ever written.
Well, again, I'm pretty stubborn on my particular loyalties to music, and my genres, were really strong, probably from the 70s right up until, I don't know, maybe the mid 90s. Some of the ones from this modern era, Tony, I'm a lyrics guy, and lyrics have kind of gotten phased out of the process, in my opinion, in recent times. There's the same seemingly beat in every modern day album to me that's in the background. It's just kind of a staccato pattern of 1 or 2 different variations of the same thing. So I go back to the classic rock era where you were thriving as the purveyor of classic rock in this market. Probably my all-time favorite album is Billy Joel album, The Stranger.
Yes.
Which just had I don't know how many #1 hits. You mentioned Rumors, the breakthrough Fleetwood Mac album, and of course, being a tremendous Jackson Browne follower to this day, the album The Pretender was absolutely phenomenal, with tons of hits and great songs. So those are a couple that come to mind. And you mentioned Dark Side of the Moon, which at the time Pink Floyd was a little bit out there for me.
Yeah, me too.
But as I've gotten older, I find myself, I sat here yesterday on my home theater, which might be seen in the background here, I'm not sure. But the beautiful thing about this, I've got a state-of-the-art sound system on this thing, so I can just crank the music. Now, my son comes down and admonishes me sometimes. Think that's loud enough? But, so I'm living in some role reversal here. But I just cranked yesterday, both Comfortably Numb and Wish You Were Here, some Pink Floyd classics. I was getting into all kinds of things yesterday, but those are some of the ones that come to mind. And maybe commercially, A couple of them were extremely successful, but that's kind of the ones that come to mind for me when I think of my favorite albums of all time.
I mean, a lot of people would say the Eagles' Greatest Hits, which is one of the biggest selling albums of all
Oh
time.
yeah,
I don't consider Greatest Hits albums albums. I don't, because
yeah.
they're really not. I would say that based on our ages too, we have a lot more say in what should be on this list, period, only
Oh,
because when we bought records, we bought records.
records. They were actually
We could
records.
we when I heard Taking Care of Business from BTO for the first time, I couldn't go
Oh,
buy the single. I couldn't go buy, now we had KTEL albums where they take you to be the best of the best. You'd have like 12 or 13 different singles on one album, which were great, by the way. Um, but we would hear a song. We knew that if there was a second single from a particular band, we'd know it was worth the $7.99 or the $8.99 to go down to Swallens or Shillitoes or wherever you bought your records. It was worth the money to spend. Otherwise, we bought the 45.
yeah.
A lot of people are like, "What the hell is a 45?" A 45 is a single. I mean, it was a single. It was
Just
a
a tiny
45.
little
You
record
play
with
it
a
for
big
three.
hole in the middle.
Yeah, you play it for 3.5 minutes, and you have to get up and change it again. I mean,
Yep.
that's the way it was.
Or flip it over for a really bad song on the backside. Usually.
Exactly. And sometimes you got lucky, and there was a good B side that wasn't even available on an album, a live something. So we listened to albums. We put an album on. No one in my generation ever, no one put an album on, and usually the singles were the first songs on each side of the album.
Mm-hmm.
No one put the album on, listened to the one song, and took the needle off. We just let it rip.
Yep.
And each side was somewhere between 20 and 25 minutes long. Each album was about 40 to 45 minutes long. And then you'd flip it and you listen to it. And we would listen to albums over and over and over and over again. We would never. Now, if there was a song that was just not a great song, it was a weird song, you may skip the needle, you may move the needle over.
Yeah,
But very rarely.
you could meticulously lift it and try to line it up with the next groove.
Yeah, but I mean, I couldn't even tell you. I Back to Black. I mean, again, unless you had like The Stranger, which is one of those rare albums where I want to say almost if every song, there had to be 6 or 7 singles off that album.
Oh, absolutely.
Almost every single, there's only about a handful of albums all time where every single song, Led Zeppelin #4 is another one of
Yes.
those. Every song is a killer. I mean, there's not a song Back in Black from AC/DC is another one of those where every single song is just unbelievable. Even the songs that weren't released as singles are just killers. There's only several of those that are available. Most albums have a good song, lousy song, good song you never want to hear again on the radio, and then maybe a center cut. Then you flip it and you listen to the other side. And sometimes you go on a whole side, there wouldn't be anything on it, or Rumors from Fleetwood Mac. And again, some of those albums were really, really good. Only in that there were so many great singles on them that it made all the other songs on that album better than they really were. I think Hotel California is a great album. I don't think Pretty Maids in a Row or a couple other songs, but those songs are great only because we were forced to listen to them over and over and over again, even when we didn't want to. Not to say they're not great songs now, but I mean, you play a song enough and you don't like it, you're going to end up liking it eventually. I mean, you play the same song. And so like a Hotel California, which is again, one of the best albums we ever, any other time, you wouldn't have even heard some of those other songs. Because we listen to albums in their entirety, we are much more knowledgeable on this, is all I'll say.
Yeah, you mentioned The Stranger. Two of my favorite songs on the album were probably the only ones on there that weren't hits. There's a song, I Love These Days, that's just phenomenal, and another one that's just a kind of a nice little love song, and it starts off, while in these days of quiet desperation. I mean, those lyrics really speak to me. I mean, it's really cool. So that's something I think we've lost in this time, that you find, I guess I would call those deep cuts. You'd find those on those albums, and some of those songs have resonated for me for years.
Yeah. Moving Out, The Stranger, Just the Way You Are, Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. That was
one of my all-time favorite songs.
And then side 2 was Vienna, which, by the way, if you saw that live show from New York, he played Vienna. And then
Great.
Normally, artists will tell you this. They're going to put their good stuff number 1 on either side. They want to start off with a killer song. Vienna, which was not released as a single, I don't believe, or maybe it was. Only the Good Die Young, She's Always a Woman, Get It Right the First Time, and Everyone Has a Dream. And then on the LP and the cassette release, track 5 includes a reprise of The Stranger. The 8-track does not. That's funny, the 8-track.
How about that? I didn't realize that.
The
I'll have
run-
to
the-
check
the-
my 8-track collection. It's hard to
Well,
believe.
the running order was actually The Stranger, Moving Out, Only the Good Die Young, and Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. Conclusion in that
Ugh.
order because it was an 8-track. Isn't that interesting? Where you had different trackings on different sources or a different platform.
Amazing.
Music. So it's really good stuff. All right, great. All right, so second thing I want to get into is the NBA playoffs.
Okay.
I think this is really interesting right now. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I'm doing the show with you, and I know you're a big NBA guy. My son Santo loves the NBA. I did a show with Lance Taylor for a while. He was a big NBA guy. Was not in the NBA at all when I first got here. I absolutely love it. Last series, we had a couple of game 7s that were wonderful. And of course, game 7s in sports are the best, the best, the best. I don't care
And
what the sport is.
shockingly, both the road teams won those game 7s.
Yes, they did.
Indiana not expected to go into Madison Square Garden and eliminate the Knicks. And what about the Timberwolves going to Denver and beating the defending champions on their home court? The Timberwolves, a team that's been really irrelevant since they came in the league, just living the dream right now.
Yeah, when we record the show, the Timberwolves, of course, will be taking on the Mavs later on tonight. They're down 3-0.
Yeah,
the Ant-Man's been a no-show. He's unbelievable, and he's incredibly fun to watch. But yeah, the Mavs get it done last night, and they're up 3-0. And then, of course, in the other series, you got Boston, who's also up 3-0. And that sucks. I mean, because not only that,
yeah,
people
these
talk about-
series is well, you knew Boston is the team to beat,
They
and
are.
and
They're favored by six, yeah.
Indiana's the Knicks. There's just something fundamentally wrong there. So I didn't expect a good series. I thought the Timberwolves and Mavericks would be knocked down, drag out 7 games, and it's not working out that way.
Well, and again, it's a game of inches, right? I mean, you look at any of these series, and you could sit there and I mean, we've had 18-point leads just disappear in a heartbeat. And any of these times that you look at 3-0, it could easily be 2-1 or 2-1 the other way, just based on the bounce of the ball a couple of times. And yeah, I think there's no doubt that everyone thinks this is Boston's world championship to win, regardless. And I do love the Pacers, and I think Carlisle's done a fantastic job. It's a fun basketball team to watch. Again, when you're talking about the Ant-Man, who I want to say averaged like 26, 27 points a ball game during the regular season. Then in the playoffs, all of a sudden he's shooting the ball 40 times a game. He's going off for 32. I think his shooting percentage is like under 30% in the last 4 games. I mean, when he's not going, it's just not a pretty
it's going to be tough for them.
Pretty product to look at. But what I want to bring up is I'm a handicapper, and I like to look at lines. And whenever you see, and you're good at this too with hockey too, because whenever you have a 7-game series, in the NHL, is it 2-2-1-1-1?
Yes.
Okay, so it used to be 2-3-2 for people don't remember that.
Yeah, baseball's still that way now for
yeah.
the World Series.
Yeah, and it, logistically speaking, I understand why it still is 2-3-2, but I also don't think that home field advantage is as big in Major League Baseball as it is in hockey or NBA, and so it probably doesn't make that big of a difference. The whole idea is you're going to win the home games and you're going to lose the away games. Well, we're not seeing that anymore. You just mentioned the 2 teams that won on game 7s. What I think is really interesting is I love watching the lines. I love seeing the lines because normally, so you got 2 games right off the bat between 2 teams, regardless of who they are, and you're going to set the line, and let's say it's Boston 7 and 207, and they're at home. Well, the second game is going to be the same, regardless of whether Boston won by 30, whether the game was 69-65, whether they scored 275 points. It doesn't matter what happened in that first game. The second line is always going to be within a half or a point of what the first line was. Okay? Before I ask you the question on that, then you go on the road, and based on what a home court advantage is worth, we'll see the line move 3 to 4 to 5 points. Okay. We see Boston favored by 9, 10, 12 points, and now they're only favored by 6 on the road. And we know how difficult it is to win on the road in the NBA. The 6 points is a lot regardless. And you're talking the final 4 teams, right? They, Indiana must be doing something right. They got to be pretty good to be in the conference finals. I don't even know if there's a question here, but I want to get your thoughts because I know you've been in casinos your entire life and you're a handicapper and you look at these things. But is Vegas just so flipping tight and so good that I mean, even Vegas is wrong sometimes.
Mhm.
If they say Boston is 7-207 and Boston wins by 30 and the game goes 1 or 251, it just flies over the total. The next night, the line's going to be relatively close to the original line, correct?
Yes.
Can you explain to me why? Based on what we saw
Basically,
in that same game.
I don't know if you remember, you and I did a show with my son, Case Keefer, who's a major handicapper and the editor of the Las Vegas Sun, really a rising star in that particular area because his expertise is unbelievable. But he addressed that by saying that he doesn't get swayed by any particular, isolated situation. Basically translates into one game. His basis is the same as the guys that make these lines because they get in a room and they have numbers on top of numbers, and it's all data and it's all trends and it's the big picture. It's the whole story. And Case always talks about how lines move when the public overreacts to something they saw just in the last game. The line will be set at maybe 6, and all of a sudden, if Boston beat a team by 30, all of a sudden it's going to jump up to 7 or 8 because people are getting on that, going, well, they just beat them by 30. The line's only 6. But all of those calculations are made with all kinds of different trends on long-term things that have happened, and they just don't react to individual games or individual quarters or great comebacks or massive collapses. They are just all numbers based, and that's kind of an amalgam of all that data, and that's why the number still comes back. Even with an aberrant game, the number is going to come back pretty much the same.
It should tell you just how incredibly difficult it is to be a gambler and make a living at doing it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the first time I heard it, I don't know, I was 10, 11 years old. Okay, there's two teams playing. You're allowed to look at both sides. You're allowed to look at all their trends. You're allowed to look at how they've done in the past. You get to pick which side you want. I'm going to set the number. You get to pick, and I'll just take the other side. If that doesn't sound like a slam dunk, okay, I'll take that. I'll take that all day long. And then I'm sitting back to myself and I'm thinking to myself, if I had gone the other way on every bet I've ever had in my life, I'd be a millionaire right now because I sure as hell have lost
It
millions of
seems
dollars.
that way.
Seriously, but then again, that doesn't work either because if you look at a game and you're like, okay, I'm taking this team. I'd take this team tonight. I want to take Boston tonight. So I'm not doing well. So I'm going to take Indiana because I like Boston. It doesn't work that way. You can't think that way. Your brain won't allow you to take the other side because if you do take the other side, that's going to lose too. Sometimes it doesn't matter which side you take. It just ain't yours. It just ain't going to happen. Fortunately, I've been absolutely on fire in the NBA playoffs. I've just been unbelievable. The overs.
Nice.
I love playing overs. And I love playing both teams over. And then obviously the total's going over. And that's happened with the Mavs, I think 3 games in a row where all 3 games have gone over the total and both teams have gone over. So I'm just boom, 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 and I'm boxing, I'm up. So okay, I knew that, but it's amazing because Vegas is like, okay, here you go. We set the line, we played the game, and here's what happened. Now we're going to do the same exact game with the same exact players.
Yep.
We're going to adapt a little bit.
48 hours later.
48 hours later, we're going to move the players around. No injuries. Everything's still the same. And we're going to keep the line the same. Now, who do you want? And you're like, are you serious?
Boston won by 30 and they're only 6. Good grief.
I know, right? And then when they win by 30 again, you're like, dumbass. Why didn't I think of that? and we talk ourselves out of that. I did that last night with the Mavs and the Timberwolves. Because I had the over on both teams, and I thought to myself, if you go through 20 baseball games or 20 NBA games or 20 NFL games, and you just look at the over-unders, over the course of the season, it's going to be close to 50-50. It just is. I mean, sometimes maybe in a small sample size, if you got 40 games, you may have 30 overs and 10 unders in a small sample size. When you're talking about hundreds of thousands of games, it's going to be 1,167 overs and 1,147 unders. It's going to be relatively close. And so while I know you're never due, I'm looking at that going, okay, the line's still the same. It's still 207 and it's still 1.5, 2 points. Why hasn't Vegas made, and I'm not talking about moving it 3 or 4 points, okay? I'm just talking maybe a half or 2. I'm
Yeah.
thinking to myself, okay, both teams have gone over the first 2 games. The total's gone over, and now they're leaving the line at the same number. It can't possibly go over. It can it? And what did it do last night?
Over.
I couldn't play it. I was like, Tony, don't talk yourself out of it. Don't be a dumbass. Play the over, because I'm sitting here looking at the numbers. I looked at how Dallas's defense plays on the road. I see how they play at home. I mean, I did extensive research. I looked at that line last night for about an hour and a half and saw that 207. And I'm waiting for that thing to go up to 208, 209, 210. I'm like, jump on it early. It was 4:00 in the afternoon. And so I played it. I didn't play it nearly what I wanted to play. And I wanted to put some serious cash on it because I'd already seen 2 games.
Yep.
I'd already seen 2 games. And I'm like, and so I played it, and what does it do? It goes over, and I didn't win what I wanted to. I should be happy that I came home a winner. But yeah, I think it's.
Well, remember what else Case told us in that interview? Right when the line comes out, the earlier you strike, just based on your initial interpretation. And what he does is, before he anticipates the lines coming out, he makes his own line. He'll look at every game and every over under, and he's got a number that he thinks is the right number based on his analysis. And then he checks the number as it comes out. If there are aberrations, he bets it the first day. Remember, he told us on the NFL, he makes almost all of his NFL bets on Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
And he's done because he's reacted to the line right away. And sometimes it moves in his favor, and he makes adjustments and gets some.
He's a rare bird. He's a super smart guy. He makes a living doing what he's doing. There's not a lot of guys who get to put on their 1040s gambler as a profession. My uncle was a gambler. He was a professional poker player. The discipline that comes with that is ridiculous. That's why you don't see gamblers who are alcoholics. It doesn't happen. You can't. I'm not saying all of them, but you just can't. You rarely see really good gamblers drink at all. But he is so good that he could set the number himself. Most of us have an idea. I mean, you look at Liam, Alabama, LSU this coming season, we can take a stab at it. And you and I probably within a point or 2 based on, what we've seen so far in that season. And so he can do that, which is always interesting, because another reason is, okay, why don't we just wait till the end and then play the steam? The steam being, the big money coming in at the last minute. And really, if you're smart, you should play it early, because you do see those lines. I mean, there's a reason why the first third of any season, the gambler wins. The second third, they break even. And the last third, they lose. You would think, because you've got more stuff to look at, analytics, that the last third, you'd be. College football is so stinking tight the last third of the year. That's what was amazing about you and I going 22-3 or whatever.
Yeah, we had an
on our plays,
unbelievable
because
run.
I mean, it's almost impossible. The lines are so stinking tight. It's just really hard to tell. But yeah, he's smart enough to be able to do that. And if you can jump on it early, there's nothing worse though, jumping on a line and then having it go your direction 2 or 3 more points, knowing that you could have had a much better line. But I mean,
Well, he'll if that happens, he'll bet it more as the week progresses.
See, now I've got a thing. Let me ask you this. I've got a thing where once I make a bet, I normally don't ever put any more on it. And I'll tell you why. Because every time I do, I lose. I don't know why. If I've got a game and I put 250 on it and I just love it and the line's moving, seems like every time I put another 250 on it, I lose that game. If I leave it alone, it seems like maybe I'd win. And I'm one of these guys where I don't get greedy. I'm thinking, just be happy you're a winner. Just be happy you won. You don't have to put major money on it. Put 50 on it. It gives you something to watch, and it makes it entertaining. But it seems like whenever I double down or I put a little money on it before a game, I mean, it's just my thing. It's my superstition. It seems like I lose.
Well, I mean, I can echo that, because I can remember many horse and greyhound races in my storied career where I was so sure that I kept going back and putting more and more and more. And I think my winning percentage on those occasions really, really bad. Hardly ever when you just keep going back and saying, well, I got to get more on this. That never, my biggest hits, Tony, have been just simple, one time, throw it out there, and then you go, it paid what? That's awesome. When you load up, I don't know. It's you don't want to, and see, Case would scoff at this discussion because I think people like you and I that look at it from kind of of one extra layer of, well, I don't want to do that because then I'm going to jeopardize myself because it's not going to go according to expectations if I load up. Case would scoff at that because, again, he is strictly a mathematician on this stuff and doesn't let emotion play into it at all.
Well, and he should be. I mean, that's what a gambler is. I mean,
that's right. And we would be wise to adopt more of that kind of attitude.
No doubt. Superstition does not play into it.
But I'm like you. It seems like anytime I load up, I lose.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I can't. I think I lost like 8 Super Bowls in a row. And I'm a 100, 200 player. I'm not a huge player, but whenever I went 3, 4, 500 on a game, it seems like I lost. And there's nothing better. I will say this. I get just as upset and just as angry when I have 50 on a game than when I have 100 on a game or 200 on a game.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing better than being live at the action. There's nothing better than being at a football game and actually having money on the game while you're actually in the stadium, which I think is super cool. But I do find that when I do have enough money on a particular game, and I did this past week in the NBA, and it came in, it kind of takes away a little bit of when you have one of those games where you are trending to win the bet from the get-go. And the NBA is a lot like that because you'll see like Toronto or not Toronto, but you'll see the Mavs and Timberwolves, and their team totals will be 101 and 102 minus $140, minus $145. I always look at those, when they're heavy favorites, that's kind of telling me something. And to take the other side, to take the under, I'd actually be getting some plus money. Those bets don't ever seem to come in. In this particular case, it was warranted because all the totals went over. It seems like it does take away some of the fun. It feels great to win, but I mean, it's kind of like at the end of the night, man, you're scratching your eyeballs out, and to lose a game like that, you ain't going to sleep anytime soon. You ain't sleeping anytime soon. I promised myself that's when I started looking at the bottom. Problem gambling, 1-800-call gambler. I'm like,
yeah,
if I can't go to sleep after a game, we've all been there, man. We've all been there where we had the night. I forget it was in the series. And I want to say it was the Timberwolves, and I had their team total over 105.5. They're sitting at 104 with the basketball with a second and a half left. They get fouled from the 3-point line. I forget who it was. He goes to the line. He's shooting 91% for the season. He makes the first free throw. He misses the second. And he's going to miss the third on purpose because they're down 2. So, all he's got to do is make 2 of the 3, and I'm getting the over. And I was like, yeah, and it's one of those things where, but it is what it is.
That's agonizing. That's so agonizing.
It really is. But I mean, and let me ask you this before we let you fly. And I could sit here and talk to you all day. Have you ever hedged a bet? And what I mean by hedging a bet, have you ever played a game, for some reason, maybe misplayed it or didn't like it? There's a guy named the guy of the Nuggets center who's just unbelievable. Great basketball player. There's another guy that played on the team that they were playing on. I forget his name, but it's like his last name's Jonik instead of Jovic.
Yeah.
And I saw the line. It was like 12.5 points for the game. I was like, why in the world does Jovic only have 12.5 points? The guy's averaging 30 points a game. And I should have known. I was a dumbass. I should have known. So I played Jovic over 12.5, knowing, wow, they must have screwed up. I got news for you. Vegas never screws up. They never screw up. If you ever go in to a sports book and see the Yankees win total for the year at 3.5 games, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. They're never, they don't screw that up. So don't ever think, well, somebody messed up here. They just put Alabama's win total at 8.5. There's something going on here. There's something going on, and it's real. So I played it, and I put 2 bills on it, minus $1.40. So I'm going to lose 280. And I thought, and I don't have any clue about this guy. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, do I need to go back in and play 200 the other way and just put my tail between my legs and take the juice loss, knowing there's no way to win this bet? Or do I just let it fly and let it go? And I let it fly, and he ended up scoring over 12.5, and the bet came in. But have you ever hedged a bet, or have you ever looked at something and all of a sudden thought, oh, I didn't know this guy was out, and I want to go ahead and misplay it? And particularly horses, I would think there's going to be some different ways to save.
Oh yeah, horse racing, that's a standard. If you play a pick 4 or pick 5, which basically means you have to have in a pick 4 winners in a row, 4 straight races. Pick 5, same thing. You get to if you get the first 3 legs in and you get to the final leg in a pick 4 or a pick 5, you can see the will pays going into that last leg, so you know how much whatever horses you have alive. Let's say you have the first 4 in a pick 5, you can look and see, okay, if I've got the 5, 6, and 7, the 5's paying 250, the 6 is paying 800, the 7's paying 600. You can already see what they're going to pay, and then you can, in horse racing, you can definitely start to hedge your bet a little bit. And play some of the other possible contenders. You don't have to go crazy, but you can take an 8 or 9 or 10 to 1 shot, or somebody that was right on the fringe of your consideration anyway, and play some trifectas or exactas off of those horses in case one of them happens to win, so you don't take a total loss. The best hedge that I know of was a couple of years ago. Case had Kansas bet to win the national championship, and that was a rare occasion where he really liked them, despite the fact that it was his alma mater. So he always says he's not emotional, but he'll tell you to this day he just thought Kansas was the best team going into the year. So like he does, he had Kansas, I can't remember what they were, 14 or 15 to 1, and he had a big bet on that. But on the night of the final game, his hedge was brilliant, because North Carolina, the opponent in that game, was getting 3.5 points. So he made a considerable bet on North Carolina as well. And the game was back and forth. Carolina had a 14-point lead at halftime. Kansas immediately wiped that out. So Kansas ends up winning the game. So he hits his big bet for the season, the national championship. But right at the end of the game, Kansas made 2 free throws to go up 4. And Carolina got a basket right at the end to get underneath the 3.5. So he clobbered it on both ends. That's the kind of hedge that you really like.
Well, and those, this is the same guy, and this drives me crazy. Guys who a game will be at 3, they'll take one team minus 2.5 and the other one plus 3.5 and try to hit the middle. I mean,
that's
what are you
doing?
What do you? I mean, even if there's a 2 or 3 point, give me in the middle, I don't think it's enough, because it's got to fall right on 3 in order to win both sides. Are you kidding me? If you're that damn good that you can nail a game and hit both sides of it when there's only a 1 point difference on either side, then you need to go to Vegas right now and forget everything.
Yeah. And I mean, that's not enough of a middle. That makes no sense. I mean, you're basically I mean, you're just hoping for a miracle there.
Yeah, and I'm always like, I'm a gambler. I'm not a gambler, but when you gamble, you're a gambler, and that's the game. And so I always think, okay, if I make a mistake or I play something wrong, or I played something early in the year, that's just smart to hedge. Super smart. We've seen guys, where they have like hundreds of thousands of dollars on a particular thing, and they'll hedge it, or they'll sell off part of their bet. They'll ask someone to take part of it, so that way they walk off. They know they're going to have $40,000 or $50,000 in their pocket, or they go for it. The gambler in me, the part that's undisciplined in me, tells me that's what gambling is. You played it, you pay it, you go get it. You don't want to hedge it, because then you're kind of playing against this. The whole It's the whole voodoo thing, man. It's kind of like you're when you're hedging your own bet, you're kind of saying, I don't believe in what I did the first time, and I don't know what I know there's nothing I don't, but I see a lot of gamblers with lucky rabbit's feet. I do, and so whatever it takes, whatever makes you feel good about winning your bet, you do what you got to do. It's amazing how voodoo plays into gambling for some of these guys.
There's a great movie that Richard Dreyfuss was in, which is called Let It Ride, and he just plays a degenerate cab driver, kind of bum that loves to go to the horse races, and he has the magical afternoon where one of his compadres, another cab driver, heard a guy in the back seat tout a horse at the first race. Anyway, the long and short of the story is he's already got the first couple of winners, and he's just everything he makes, he's just letting it ride on the next race. That's his plan for the day. So if he makes 200 on a race, he's betting it right back the next race. And he gets into the fourth or fifth race, and he's on his way to the window. He's going to bet Sir Byron. And they mistake him for a guy that they're looking for. He fits the description of a pickpocket. So they accost him and drag him to the security office, and he's on the best roll of his life. He's in 4 races in a row, and he's just having an absolute fit. Goes, I demand to be able to bet Lord Byron, and they sit down and shut up. So he's in the security office, and they finally straighten out the whole mess. But the gate opens right when they tell him he can go, and he's watching the race. And it's the great Trevor Denman is doing the commentary in the movie, and he's going, and it's Lord Byron just dominating this field, and Richard Dreyfuss is just dying. He's rolling on the floor. He's just absolutely miserable, and right in the stretch, and all of a sudden you hear Trevor go, oh, and a shocking incident. Lord Byron has lost the rider. And they go full screen on Richard Dreyfuss, and he's looking at the TV, and he says, that was a shocking incident. So the next race, I got to finish this. The next race, he gets out of there, and he hadn't had a chance to look at the race or whatever. So he's going around the track, going to every track regular, Tony, and asking them, who do you like here? And they'll go, well, I always like an Irish jockey on a bay colt. See, so number 2, he scratches out number 2. He asks every track regular, and every one of them gives him a horse till he gets down to just one horse, and he goes and bets it all on that horse, the only one that nobody in the track, and they're all telling you their theories. And I think it's a great illustration of people that do this every day have these ridiculous quirks that get in the way of their own success. And I think it's right along the line of what we're talking about.
There is no doubt. I was in Vegas. I was staying at a place called the Las Vegas Club, which is downtown, and it's no longer there.
Yep.
And Tommy Kaminsky, of course, was the pit guy. He was a friend of mine for a long period of time. I had an unbelievable run there one year at the Las Vegas Club. We went out there. We used to go out there for NASCAR races. And I had my last $5 chip. I'll never forget it. We were on the way to the airport, and I put it down on the blackjack table at the Las Vegas Club, and I told the young lady, I said, I'm going to win 8 hands in a row and just let it ride. And I had done the math in my head, and it was going to come out to, I don't know, $1,630 something. I don't know.
Oh, man.
I win the first one. I win the second one. I win the third one. Fourth one, there was a double down situation. So I doubled down, win that one. And every time I'm winning, I'm asking her not to cash out my chips, just to leave them on the table. Leave them on the table. Don't touch them. Just leave them on the table. Stack them. Do whatever you want. Don't touch my chips. Just leave them on. So I get up and so I win my 5th one. So now I've got like, I'm going to say $1,600 or $1,700 on the table.
Man.
And I just showed up at Vegas. I used to show up with about $1,000, for the week. It would be gone by Tuesday. And so, I remember my dad was standing behind me. He's like, "Are you sure you want to keep this going?" I said, "No." I said, "I'm going to win 8." I told her I'm going to win 8, and I told her that I was going to win 8 hands in a row, and I was going to split it with her.
Oh, geez.
And I told her I was going to split. So she's, because you know how it is when you get the dealer in the mix. It seems like you do win more often than you don't. So I win the 6th hand. I get to the 7th hand, and I've won that. And now I've got like $4,320 something, which I've never even seen in my life. And by this time, there's a group of people around the table, and I'm sitting there on the table, and the guy to my right, who was,
and this started with a $5 chip.
$5 chip.
Wow.
And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. And the guy standing to my right wasn't playing. He was the son of one of the fathers that we there. He reached over and grabbed a stack of my chips in front of me and just tried to stack it. And I said, "Whoa, what are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm just stacking." And I mean, the red chips and stuff everywhere, and we're at a $2 table, right? This is not
Yeah.
This is not Caesars. I mean, they're letting the stuff ride. We're having a good time with it. People are drinking and so I look at my dad. My dad's like, he just touched your chips, dude. Take your $4,000, give her two, and you're gonna walk out of here and you're gonna have $2,000. Mama's gonna be happy. You're gonna be happy. It's gonna be all good. And I said, no. I said I was gonna go 8 hands
Oh
in a row.
no.
And you know what happened? Of course, I lost.
Oh.
And we still talk about that. My dad, God love his soul, God rest his soul. We brought that up almost every single time, and I was so angry because I knew that guy to my right. It was like he was jinxing me on purpose. If I didn't know better, I'd say, what was the movie called? The Cooler.
Yeah.
If I didn't know better, someone in the bar or someone was paying him to touch my chips, and I knew the guy. I mean, he was on our trip with us, and I was
Oh
like, why
boy.
in the world? And my dad's like, it's changed. This has changed now. What are you going to do? And even the dealer said, listen, it's your money. Take your money, man. Take your $4,000. It's been a great run. You don't have to give me anything. And I was going to split. And of course, she was just as upset as I was because the last hand would have
Oh.
gained us like $8,000. But that was my Vegas trip. So,
Oh man, I cannot believe that guy touched your chips.
oh,
And then I
dude,
can't believe you played.
dude. Well, yeah, I know. I can't. Well, that's the non-disciplinary, hard-headed dumbass, not thinking straight, greedy. You throw the word out what it means. I mean, I should have known better. I should have just taken it and been done with it. And I didn't think to do that. So anyway, all right, my
Wow.
man. Can't wait to see you on Saturday. We're getting ready for our big show, ABC 3340. It is going to be a fantastic day of fun and frivolity and some great fodder as well. We'll be talking, of course, we're inside 100 days for college football season. Anything in particular? I know we got a special guest. I think Kai Gregory is going to be showing up. Speaking of a guy who hits some pretty good ball games. He's going to be joining us on the show coming up this Saturday, but looking forward to this. And I'm telling you, man, college football season is going to be here before you know it.
Oh, I'm telling you, I was just getting ready to say Saturday will be June 1st. So I mean, the first games are on August 24th. The first full schedule is August 31st. Tony, we're right in the landing pattern. It's almost football season.
And I cannot believe, and I was telling my son this, I cannot believe because I'm watching the SEC baseball tournament to see Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC is just still just a mind blow for me.
It's going to be amazing.
It is going to be unbelievable. When I saw the opening lines and looking at some of the and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, I didn't know Arkansas was playing Oklahoma. Wow, what a great and I'm like, oh, that's right. That's not a non-conference game. That's
Not
the
at
real
all.
deal. And I mean, Texas and Oklahoma, dude, that's like it's like we was picked the two best teams we could have chosen anywhere and add them to our kudos to Greg Sankey. I know there's been a lot of changes in the NCAA going on right now, but I mean, he's got it going on. But the SEC tournament and the SEC period is going to be just a juggernaut this year. It's going to be unbelievable.
It's
only a matter of time before we have an all 4-team SEC playoff.
Well, I think I told you the story. I know we need to wrap up, but I was in the back of an Uber and the guy was saying, a team I'm really impressed with what they've done. And so he was knowledgeable. He said, Lane Kiffin has really put together a much better roster this year. I think they're really going to be tough for Bama. And I said, well, Bama doesn't have to worry about Ole Miss. They don't play them. And he goes, what? No. They play Ole Miss every year. They have for 50 years. I said, dude, they're not playing Ole Miss. They're not playing Mississippi State. They're not playing Arkansas. There's no more divisions.
Yeah.
I said, the only time they could play Ole Miss this year is in the SEC championship game. And he still didn't get it. He goes, no, they can't play. They're in the same division. I said, no, there's no divisions.
Nope.
If they have the two best records, they will play in the SEC championship game. So I don't think a lot of fans, even though they know there's changes, I don't think a lot of fans are really locked in on the fact that this is going to be a whole new ball game this year. We're going to see things we've never seen before.
No, this is going to be something where I remember NASCAR used to go, okay, who drives, the Folgers car?
Yeah.
Because the Folgers car was the same dude for 55 years. Now everyone's changing. They're changing owners every single year. I couldn't tell you who drives for what. It's going to be difficult to keep track of who's playing what conference and what time they're playing. I mean, it's going to be fantastic. And I think it's going to be a sport that obviously has been fantastic, but I think it's just going to get better. And the fact that we're going to have 12 or 14 teams into our college playoff, it's going to be unbelievable. It's going to give everyone a shot.
It's going to be something.
Fantastic.
It's something we've never seen before.
Yep, we'll do it on Saturday, my man. I'll look forward to it.
Okay, Tony, right back at you.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.